welcome Kirstin to our meeting.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, and I'm very impressed that you had the list of years with election turnout. I created something like that for myself too, because it's really hard to find. There's not a lot of coverage of these elections, and as you can imagine, even the district didn't necessarily have the best records of our turnout over the years. So as Anne said, I just started in 2019. It was wonderful to speak with you back then. It feels like it was just yesterday, but it has been a few years. We had our first bill for election reform in 2020, right before the pandemic started. And that bill passed committee. It was going to put our election on the regular ballot, and then it died in appropriations. And now we're back again. There's two bills, and one in particular, which I'd love to share more info with you tonight, or today rather, that it has a hearing this week. So if you are interested, I'll put some information in the chat when I'm done talking, that you could send a note to your legislators, or even if you're willing to testify, it would mean the world, because it would transform how these elections happen in the state. So conservation districts are in every county in our state. We have the best turnout, and that's not saying much, right? Our turnout was 0.7% last year. We have some conservation districts who only had 1 or 2 ballots cast in their entire election. So it's a real issue. Voters don't know about these elections. They don't know the hoops that they have to jump through to participate. And I've seen this as like a big barrier to participating in the conservation district. If you can't select who is even serving on the board, spending those dollars, and then you don't even know about the district to begin with. So I put a lot of effort into this because I think this is a huge first step. And as soon as we get this fixed, I want to look at funding, right? But it's hard to ask for more funding when right now, I don't believe we really are accountable to voters in a meaningful way without this being on the regular ballot. So a little bit about me. My background's in public policy. I used to work at the county. I've served on a few public-facing boards like Cascadia Community College and For Culture. And I ran on an environmental platform in 2019 focused on salmon recovery. I came to the district. There were considerable challenges, mainly with financial affairs and governance. So have really spent the last few years setting up better financial systems. We can actually produce a budget that's easy to understand now, which is great as far as being transparent to the public and to our own board to understand, and our staff, so we all are on the same page about our financial picture, and really creating a stronger board and bringing in a new executive director. We just brought in a new executive director. She's incredible. She was an environmental justice leader for the state of New York, and she just joined the district a few months ago. So I'm really excited where we're at. It's been a journey, and I'm really looking forward to where we go next. We'll be just starting our equity work as a district. It's long overdue, but that's just where we are in the process, and looking forward to looking at everything we do in the district, how we award our grants, how we reach out to people, how we bring people in, and applying an equity lens with all of our work. And as you probably know, this is not something the Conservation District has historically done. Our City of Seattle grants, which Anne has featured in the slide before, are incredible. And those we do apply those with an equity lens, but countywide, that is not happening yet. And it's something I know our board is really interested in making a difference and change. We have some cities that use those dollars to just pay for a parks planner, which is still incredible, but those dollars I think could be used in a more profound way. So I'm looking forward to bringing that change as well to the district. And then a third piece, and really why I'm here, is climate. And I think, you may know the history of conservation districts. They started right after the Dust Bowl, and with our last environmental devastation, right, that shook our country. And here we are today. Conservation districts are not just about soil anymore. We're not just about dirt. We are about salmon recovery. We're about tree canopy, healthy forests, prevent forest fires. We're about cleaning up the sound and doing really, bringing back native restoration throughout the whole county. So I think there's a really huge potential for the conservation district system statewide to be doing so much more than what we're doing. They're very low funded, as you can imagine. It's just that flat fee right now that is funding the districts. It's a very regressive fee. Everyone pays the same. So I would love to see our funding linked to a percentage of property tax, something that's more fair and equitable, but also would bring in more dollars to the district. Oregon has adopted that model. They put all their elections on the regular ballot. And then they also allow districts to go directly to voters to ask for this permanent funding mechanism that was property tax. So there's a lot of great options out there. Washington's behind, I think, in fully utilizing our conservation districts, and I'm really excited to do this work, and it's critical and urgent right now. And I just really appreciate your time today. I'd love to take any questions, because I imagine some of you know a lot, and then some of you, this might be still new. I know I didn't know as much until I got in, so happy to share out information, and I'll include links to the bills. If you haven't voted already, as Ann said, you do need to go online to vote. It was a little confusing, I think, to voters, because they did get their ballots to vote in the school levies at the same time as they got our postcard. But I'm also hopeful that just causes the conversation to happen. Why is this not on this ballot? We did not intend for that to happen at the same time, but we wanted to regularize it and have it be a predictable election date. It used to be that our election was anytime in the first quarter, it could be a random date. So I think some conversations I've heard people having frustration about having to jump through the process. But as Ann said, we've improved it a lot. At least King County Elections is now tabulating before a private vendor was. So we've come a long way, but we have a long ways to go. Anyway, I just thank you so much for letting me talk to you today. And I really would love to answer any questions anyone may have.
So before, please, if you have questions, please raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom of, if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little area on the right that says reactions. If you click the reactions area, you'll find a button that says raise hand. Please use that feature. And if you're having trouble, then please message Ron so that he can let me know. In addition, I want to mention to everyone that Snohomish Conservation District is having an election February. The ballots can be requested February 1st. Larry Goldman has put a link into the chat that you can click to get in the list to request your ballot. If you're in Snohomish County, please do that, because it's really hard to even find out they're having an election up there. Kirstin, thank you very much for highlighting House Bill 1910. That's a hugely important bill, I think, for all of us. We'll be discussing it in our legislative session next. Our first question is from Gary McKeag. Gary, unmute, please.
Hi, thank you. I'm one of those Snohomish County people. And this is, although I found out about the Conservation District last year, this is the first time I've really had the time and attention to deal with it. But just as a general question, how much and how often, or to what extent, do you deal with quality of life issues versus education issues? At least up in Snohomish County, although they talk about that being part of their mission, most of it is education. But conservation, to me, and we've had a few instances here, like the Frognall estates, what are we, to me, that's quality of life. I moved out here from Michigan. My God, it's not all flat.
So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by quality of life, but I think everything we do at the Conservation District impacts quality of life for us. It's not just education. We provide direct grants to community organizations that do in the field work, creating gardens out of parking lots, doing surveys of people to understand if everyone's understanding of surface water pollution, to then instigate change, in parks, put up signs, don't pick up after your pet. It goes right into the sound and hurts our orcas. So I think all of it directly impacts us. It makes it more beautiful, but it also improves our water and improves our air quality. So every CD is a little different. Everyone's doing a little bit of the same thing. Some have more of a focus on rural work on their farms, and King County, obviously, we're a very diverse county, have a considerable more urban area than other conservation districts. So we have a balance, right? We're all connected. So what happens in our farms all comes down to us, right? Eventually. So it's a balancing act of trying to improve our rural area and help our farmers make better choices on their land, which actually makes their land better for production, right? Cover crop and buffers to make sure that we don't have pollutants running right into the stream where our salmon are. And then I don't know if this is fully answering your question, but I just viewed this as all improving quality of life for all of us.
Thank you, Kirstin.
Marguerite, unmute, please.
Okay, yes, hi, I'm also in Snohomish County, so this is not, this is just a curiosity question regarding your meetings, which are online, so I'm assuming that means on something like Zoom.
Right.
And I'm just wondering the history of that. Did that start with the pandemic, or was it going on before then? And how long, when did it start? And were you involved in that process of getting it online?
Right. So our meetings actually did move to Zoom before COVID. We have a big county, and we had requests from board members making the drive to Renton from the Snoqualmie Valley, that it was an issue at 5 o'clock at night. So we did move earlier to a remote option. We've come a long way with Zoom. It used to be if you were, calling in remotely, you weren't as much of a participant. It was more like, oh, did you vote? Right. Now I feel like you can have really robust conversations on Zoom. We've stayed on Zoom, obviously, throughout the whole pandemic. And at this point, I don't know how we'll ever not have this option. It's such an incredible way of bringing people in. We have considerably more participation from the public this way. We've had more people have given public comment. So it's been, I think, a really wonderful change for the district, as opposed to expecting people to drive to Renton on a Monday night at 5 o'clock, which, is a huge hurdle. So I think it's a really positive change.
Good, thank you.
Alicia.
Yeah, so I have a question more.
Alicia, your audio is pretty tough. Can you work on centering your microphone a little better?
Sure. Why don't I just try to type it out? I'm on a so why don't I just type it out in the chat?
Oh, okay, that makes sense, because I can barely understand you, and so we'll look for your typed comment in the chat. And Larry.
Yes, hi, thanks for coming. So you mentioned Bill 1910 in the chat, and I know there's also Bill 1652, which I think would do some similar things. So I was wondering if you know the difference between those two bills, and if there's one that's more preferable than the other.
So I support both of them. They are different. The 1652 I'll talk about first. That bill is more of an incremental change. It would allow the option for a conservation district to go on the regular ballot. The default would be that you would still be in the current situation of running your own election. I know our conservation district would take that option and go on the regular ballot as soon as we could. But I do think a lot of other conservation districts, if not all except us, would stay the current course. So that's one bill that's supported by the Conservation Commission, conservation districts across the state. We had a committee to create that bill, and that's where that one is. I did testify in support of that one. The second bill, Representative Gregerson sponsored and created. This one is transformative. This puts all conservation district elections on the regular ballot. It takes away our land ownership requirement that we have for some of our supervisors to serve on our board, which, as we all know, keeps many people out of the process. It also requires public disclosure, PDC, that we don't need to follow currently, adding more transparency. And it also, I'm trying to remember, land ownership. There's one more piece of that one. It also creates primaries, which I think is a huge piece too. There is a financial burden for the district to pay for more than one election a year. However, school boards do it, other special purpose districts do it. There are ways for us to figure out a way to pay for this. We can carve down into districts, for example, and better serve geographically throughout the county. And then we'd see a lower cost too. But we had 9 candidates around last year, and then the one person who won, who is incredible, so I think she would have won anyway. But she won with 20% of the vote, and so we really need to find a way to make these free college elections. So I think that bill, that's my preferred bill, if we can get there. But if it's just a baby step forward with 1910, then that would be a huge improvement from where we are too.
Okay, thanks for that. And if I could make a really quick pitch, for those who, like me, live in Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, or Northeast Seattle, those bills are in the House State Government Committee, and the chair of that is Javier Valdez of the 46th District. So if you're one of his constituents, you probably have an outsized influence.
Here, I'll put House Bill 1652 in the chat as well. That one already had a hearing. So 1910 has a hearing this week, and your representative Valdez is a sponsor of 1910 as well, which is fantastic.
I'm going to bring forward Alicia's question, which is, I was just curious along the lines of equity and food access, what is some of the work King Conservation District has done to improve access to healthy food in underserved communities? I heard Ann mention Black Star Farmers. How do you partner with groups like them around food equity access?
Right, so we have a couple different grant programs at the district. One is our local food initiative, which is doing just that. It's doing this incredible work out in the community. And we've really, we have a citizen board that helps with that, and some stakeholders that participate in the process of vetting, but they've tried to make it as inclusive as possible to bring in organizations that are serving people we have just historically not served. And that includes our Black Star Farmers, Living Well Kent, Young Women Empowered, incredible organizations that are doing work on the ground to educate and provide access to space to grow food. There's an incredible project down in Kent that I mentioned a little bit earlier, but they, out of a church parking lot, have created this incredible garden for new refugees to have access to culturally relevant seed start and grow their own food, not just for their own homes, but to be able to sell at the farmer's market. It's just really incredible work. It's on such a small scale though. I would love to be able to see us doing more of it because we have to turn people away right now or not even fully fund. So really incredible work that community organizations are doing right now. And I'm very proud that KCD is supporting that.
So we are at the end of the time that you agreed to speak with us, but we have 2 more hands up. Are you okay with taking 2 more?
Oh, of course, yes.
Then Dave Sudmeyer.
Hi, Kirstin. I was happy to be able to cast a ballot for you again this year. And I'm very interested in the political decisions being made about the voting. You indicated that lots of the districts probably would prefer to keep it as it is. Can you give me some insight into that?
Right, thank you. And thank you so much for your support. That's really wonderful. So it's a complicated issue. I've heard from some conservation districts that the cost is a big issue. Some conservation districts don't have the rates and charges funding that we do, and they only have state funding and some grants. So considerably smaller budgets. And to go on the regular ballot is a big expense, something that we can cover, but we're getting considerably more funds than a lot of the other conservation districts. That said, King County has considerably more voters, so our cost is way higher to go on the ballot. So cost is a big issue, and that's something at the hearing for the other House bill, 1652 came up was, how can we fund those smaller conservation districts to go on the ballot? Is that something that we need to look at? So in 1652, sorry, I'm jumping back, that's 1910, sorry. In the newest bill, 1910, there will be a waiver program that would allow conservation districts to petition Secretary of State and show the financial hardship of being on the ballot, put the cost of to actually go on the ballot. They have to go to their county and find out that number and why they can't afford it. And then that information could come back to the legislature. So they would actually have the grand total of how much do we need to set aside for this? So that's a piece of it. The second argument I've heard is, people don't need to vote in things they don't understand, or we all know what that means. So I think if we can take away the cost issue, I don't really think there is an issue to being on the ballot. And, this isn't the Elks Club. And I know some members would like to keep it that way, but it's undemocratic and we're using public dollars.
I see Ron, and then I'm going to close out the questioning. So Ron?
Yeah, Kristen, I haven't explored the new website. Is there a location where we can see all of the grants and programs that you've got going on?
Yes. I'll put in the link. I'll look it up for you and put it in the chat as well. But we're going to have our new annual report coming out too, which will list them all, and it's here all in one place versus having to go many pages on our website. That should be coming out pretty soon here, but the 2021 is up there.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put a link in the chat.
So I'm going to hog the last question, and mine is King Conservation District and forest management during a period when what we're really seeing is kind of a seer community secession playing out in real life. And we have King County, which is immense, that extends from really forested zones, which are managed as forests through a kind of a suburban rural interface into urban areas. And in the last few years, my understanding from soil scientists in the area is we have seen soil moisture deficits that are stunning, which is a precursor to fires coming down from the forested regions into that interface zone and even into urban environments. And we have seen some roadside fires take off in King County, and certainly down in Pierce County and up in Snohomish County. We have seen some in Oregon, which is basically the same sort of secession going on. Some devastating fires coming through and wiping out entire communities. Blue River, Detroit, a whole lot of drainages got hammered. The current forest management programs in the state of Washington don't seem to be addressing this at all. And a lot of the advice to rural homeowners in the King County area seems to be, well, just clear cut around your house for 100 feet and remove trees. And I'm curious how King Conservation District can help homeowners address these fire issues and help the county as a whole address what the planning will be if we have conditions that could lead to the sort of devastation we saw recently in Oregon.
Right. So I think one of the benefits of the conservation district is we're non-regulatory. So it's just voluntary stewardship. I think it opens a lot of doors where the county, unfortunately, sometimes that's scary for a lot of people, especially out in the rural area that have a lot of resistance. Some people have some resistance to government. We've seen that with farms. We're seeing that with people that own a lot of property that have forests on them. So we do work with landowners in the rural area that have forests, for managing forests, and we work with them to create stewardship plans with recommendations. We have incentive dollars also to encourage, which is what we use on farms too, to encourage best practices. But I will say again, it's on a small scale. This is why I want to see this better funded, because it's clear we have a lot of demand and need and limited resources. So how can we do this work quickly? Because you're right. I mean, I think we've all watched in fear the last few years as the fires this is becoming a part of our daily life, and to think that this could happen in King County is terrifying and becoming more and more of a reality. So no, I would love to see the KCD doing more of this. And what I've seen so far, we have incredible staff that are out in the community trying to educate. But it's true that a lot of people need someone to come door to door and really work with them in a non-threatening way. How can they make better decisions, and how can they make improvements to keep their own land and house safe, but to keep all of us safe.
Thank you very much.